I was born in the Stork's Nest at 8:10 p.m., October 28, 1930, in Tucson, Arizona. My parents were Lila Rachel Cruttenden and Rex Manson Muir. My brother was Kenneth Baker, and he was 14 months older than I was. We lived in Escuela, which is the Indian reservation just on the edge of Tucson. It was a sort of flat area. This is the building that Dad taught in. He was a teacher at the Indian school. And it was very flat and no trees and something like North Dakota, but a lot hotter. This is where we lived. And we had time to get a little sunshine and look cute, I guess. I was baptized April 1932. And Ken and I did seem to get along, evidently. He even gave me rides on the tricycle. So, I spent, about 3 years there in Arizona while Dad was teaching. We had 2 Indian girls that sort of looked after us and kept us out of trouble, hopefully. I guess I was happy enough with that. But then we headed back for North Dakota and lived in Inkster at the farm for a few months until Dad found a job in Gilby. The weather was a little bit different than in Arizona, somewhat different for me anyway. This is my cousin Rita. We were pretty close to the same age and had a lot of fun together. The taller one there is Betty, Rita, Ken, and myself. We moved to Gilby, where Dad was principal and teacher at the high school. He was also coach of the girls' basketball team, and evidently they did quite well because they went on to some state conference where this picture was taken. Mother had a friend, Quill. She came to visit us, and there's the depot there. Ken was in the first grade, and I followed him a year later. This is Rita again in our house in Gilby. There's Rita and Phil and Ken and myself. I completed the 3rd grade at Gilby, and then we moved to Langdon. Dad got a job with the National Youth Administration, and we lived there 1 month. During that time, Ken and I played a Monopoly game. One game lasted for 2 weeks. Dad was transferred down to Pheasanton, North Dakota, and this is where I started the 4th grade. He was at the NYA work, and we just kept growing all the time. And then a year later, we headed for Valley City. I started the 5th grade there at the state training school, and for half a year. And meanwhile, we just kept growing all the time. Ken had a route delivering Saturday evening posts, but then we headed for Fargo, where Dad was transferred again. We lived right on the edge of the border there of Moorhead, which is in Minnesota, right next to the river, but sometimes the river came up to us. We were on the 3rd floor, so it wasn't too bad that time. But when Dad was sick with cancer and got out of the hospital, we moved out to this house on the 1st floor that he could get up to. But we all were together there, and seemed to get along. I had my rubber band pistol there, but I seemed to enjoy life. Dad wasn't looking too well at that point. We seemed to take a lot of pictures. This is Betty Jean Muir, Rita and Phyllis McConaughey, as we've seen before in younger years, and another picture of me. I got into the Boy Scouts in '45, Troop 5, and enjoyed it a lot. In the ninth grade, I had probably the most useful class I ever had in woodworking. I went on to Fargo Central High School. The first 2 years there, I sold papers at the Great Northern and the Northern Pacific depots, meeting a lot of the trains and waiting late for some of the late ones because sometimes in wintertime they'd be pretty late. They were 5 blocks apart, and sometimes I had a problem getting to them. In '45, Dad died of cancer, and things changed for us then. I was in Explorer Scouts and did some great canoeing trips with them. Got into the Order of the Arrow, a little special group of the Boy Scouts. Also went to Boys State. I learned about government, quite an interesting program. Quite active in the youth group at the First Presbyterian Church in Fargo. I did have some social life. Alan Strom's a good friend of mine. We double dated a lot. And this is Jeanette Hill and Loretta Brown. And we had a good time. That summer I went to 1 week at Grinnell College in Grinnell, Iowa, to a youth conference. The next year, my senior year, I gave up my paper route and got active in play production. I was stage manager on Junior Miss, and also got interested in the Fargo Moorhead Community Theater and did lighting, mostly lighting, I guess, for them, which really paid off in my cinema days. And we produced Death Takes a Holiday, which is quite an interesting play. And on that one, I guess I was stage manager and built sets and that type of thing. I graduated in May of 1948 with about 280 other students. Then, that June, Ken and Lois were married, and they moved into the apartment, and Mother and I moved to Jamestown College, where I wanted to attend college, and Mother got a job as house mother in Watson Hall. It was a girls' dormitory. My room was connected to the apartment, but it was used as a girls' room during the school year, so I was given a room over in the boys' dormitory. Later that summer, I hitchhiked to Chicago to see the Breakfast Club. I went on to Grand Rapids for a youth conference, and then I hitchhiked on out to New York City, and then got back in time for college that fall, and had a room in the J House. My roommate was Gordon McLeod. Our families had known each other before, so we were acquainted. When homecoming came along, I was a freshman, and I got on the losing team. You have a tug-of-war across the river, and the freshmen always get the low side, so they don't have a chance. I got interested and active in play production. I also sold tickets and chartered a bus and took people to Fargo to see some concerts there. I'd arranged for the tickets and sailed for the bus and all that. We did lighting for Life with Father and normal winter activities, shoveling snow and getting around that, and the Christmas banquet, dance, and the beauty of the winter. In the spring of '49, I went all out on the Macbeth set with lighting and the construction, the biggest set they've ever had. I even had to put in new lighting. But meanwhile, I did go to some classes and finished up the semester. That summer, I hitchhiked out to Los Angeles and visited my cousin June. Did a lot of sightseeing and seeing what was going on in the religious film industry. Came back and traveled with the Prairie Players. I was in charge of sets and lighting. It was quite an experience going from high school to high school, one-night stands. In the fall of '49, I was quite active in a lot of things around the school, like organizing the Sada Hawkins Day dance. And I called the square dances. I had a lot of experience in some of the youth camps I've been to. It was quite a lot of fun, and I enjoyed it myself. I built the sets for Hamlet and did the lighting for it. It was quite a challenge. I also went to dances and classes because that was the purpose. Also, some of the guys in our dorm talked me into joining the Army Reserves. Friday nights, pick up a little extra money. That was February 10th. It was the 465th Field Artillery Battalion, Company C in Jamestown. So it's a good bunch of guys, and we had a lot of fun. But as you know, in July of 1950, North Korea invaded South Korea, and we got activated September 4th, 1950. We were shipped down to Camp McCoy, Wisconsin on September 10th of that year. Camp had been closed up after the Second World War, so we had to open up everything, clean things up. It took a while to get the equipment in to practice. We worked with the 105 millimeter. This is the 50-pound shell. And then we finally got some 8-inch howitzers, which the unit was. That's a 200-pound shell, and my job was putting fuses on. We also did the regular training, sharpshooting, target practice. I got involved in the youth group at La Crosse, Wisconsin, and met Ben Thompson. We double dated a lot, and I had a place to stay Saturday night. I'd go down Saturday and we'd go dancing or whatever was going on at the time. July of 51, we were given 3 weeks leave to visit home before we shipped out to Korea. We were picked out according to our MOS number, according to what were special training. Mine was ammo, so I was an ammo corporal, and I joined the 3rd Division, 9th Field Artillery Battalion in Korea, and ended up in a 155 howitzer. I'd never seen the guns before. The ammo was the same, just 100 pounds instead of 50 or 200. The guns pretty much operated the same. The main thing is to keep them clean. We had 2 Koreans helping us when we were loading guns or cleaning. So I had a crew of about 16. I was promoted to sergeant in charge of 1 gun and the crew that kept it going. And I tried to keep nice and clean when I could. I was then promoted to chief of firing battery, which was master sergeant, and they said stay another month and get your stripes, and I said heck with you. And so we started getting ready to ship back out, and then we got a lot of waiting for the ship. But then we had a nice 2-week ride back to the States. I got a little trinket to remember it by as we crossed the international date line. But it was going under the Golden Gate Bridge that I felt I was really back in the United States. And then we waited for the trains to take us to Camp McCoy, Wisconsin, for getting out. I was honorably served, active duty as Sergeant First Class, and we got together a picnic of our group in Jamestown, and then I went back to college in September 52. I was given a room in Sanford Hall, the boys' dormitory, 2nd floor, corner room, real nice. Ate all my meals at home, right next door. Roommate was Art Bucamella, and I helped build floats for the YWCA, I believe. And I was also very active in the photography club, teaching everybody else how to use the darkroom and the studio. I had a small camera, 35, and I bought another camera, and I did a lot of photography of all the activities, and was able to sell them to the students, and did quite well. I was campaign manager, Scotty McLeod, got him in as vice chairman, and I sang in the a cappella choir. I'm way up there in the right corner there somewhere. And also went to class when I had time, so I felt I ought to do that sometimes. Nice warm spell in February. The girls got out to get a little sun. Snowbank in the background left over. I changed my major, so I had to get a couple of courses during the summer and went to University of Colorado in Boulder. and took those courses plus some ballroom dancing and square dancing, and did a little sightseeing on the side when we had a chance. My first trip to Pikes Peak, active in the youth group on campus, and it's a good place to meet girls and for dates. We gave 3 girls a ride back to North Dakota, and then got the same room at Sanford, and did a little more studying. Did a lot of photography, though. Mother was still over at Watson Hall as house mother, and I'd help her now and then when I could. Did a lot of photography for the yearbooks, and had one yearbook had over 200 pictures in it that I took. In stage production on a big musical we did. I did some studying actually in my last year. I really enjoyed what I was taking, so did okay. And I finally got a degree, Bachelor's of Science, and of course made up my own graduation. Finished at noon on Monday. I then gave my gown to Mother. We took pictures too. And then I hopped in the car and drove straight through to Los Angeles and started school Wednesday at Art Center. I stayed with Annie Mae for about 2 weeks until I got to know some of the fellows, and then we got an apartment. Art Center was a full summer semester of still photography. I thought there was motion pictures, but there wasn't. I did the assignments and enjoyed it, and did some other work like taking this picture and selling it to the manager of the theater. And I found a great group at youth at the Wilshire Presbyterian Church. Again, always the best place to get acquainted when you're new in the city. We did all kinds of things. Always had some real nice parties, great fellowship. And we get off to the beach now and then and get a little sun and recreation and get into the sand. That's Maybelle. Oh, that's Pat there, Pat Herman. Retreats on the beach, and sometimes the tide would come in on to get us. We had weekend retreats up in the mountains. In the fall, I started full-time as senior at Southern Cal. I only had 3 credits toward my degree, so I majored in cinema. I had to take more courses. Got a part-time job in the audiovisual department showing films across campus to the teachers that requested them. Also cleaned films as part of my part-time job. And I got active in the Society of Motion Picture Television Engineers, and with that for 50. You'd take classes in audio or directing or editing Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Tuesday and Thursdays we'd come together and break up into crews. And if you were taking an audio class, you'd be the audio engineer for that crew. And this one, I think I was working audio, obviously working boom anyway. You'd help out anywhere you could. If the parents were busy being filmed, you helped with the child. This is the studio. We were working with the students that were planning the card tricks for the football games. We'd set up some animation showing how the cards were set up and made words and everything. Then we'd shoot on location. Well, every time we had a break, of course, we'd grab something to eat. And I guess after Beth saw the way I was eating my meals, she took pity and took me home to Pasadena for Thanksgiving dinner. During the Christmas break, I worked on the production with the faculty at the cinema school, and we produced The Face of Lincoln, and we got an Oscar for it, the best short subject. So I was sort of proud of that, having worked on that production. And in spare time, I learned how to ride the unicycle. I mean, this is what you do in California. Took a class in TV production. Had to do everything live. No tape recorders invented yet. My student project, one of them was this one. I was acting in this one, I guess. This is the house we lived in, 7 of us. We rented this house. Came to about $20 a month a piece. Was not bad. We had 2 refrigerators and a kitchen and a place a dark room to work, and I had a place to do layout and planning. I was business manager for it. Ken and Lois came that summer for vacation, and I showed them around. Lois enjoyed the ocean, and we went to Knott's Berry Farm and did the typical tourist things. And Ken always had a little fun, hamming it up a little bit. And we also went to Disneyland, did a few rides. One of the graduate projects was about the Long Beach Harbor, how it's used. It's a documentary on it, and I was sound engineer, obviously, on that project. And I did wintertime break. I did printing in the film lab. And we always had Christmas parties. These are the Corbins. Mrs. Corbin, we were advisors for the second year of the group. And we also had retreats. This was probably out at the ocean somewhere. And we always had a chance to goof up. Two of the guys there lived in the house. I also took classes at night in electronics at national schools. I was invited to come to Nashville as a sound engineer, so they suggest I get more electronics, which was always good. The other project in the spring was working with the Air Force, a documentary on how to study a scene accident, air crash accident. And we always had more chance to get out to the beach and have parties. But I still ended up with straight A's as I went in to finish my thesis, which was required at Southern Cal. Now they required you could do a film instead of a written thesis. But this came up in my research class, and I produced a film and slides, and then how to teach students how to run a machine, whether motion or still would work, and put all that together, and finally ended up with a master's degree of arts from Southern Cal. And Pat Herman, the artist in our group, designed a little card that I could send out to notify everybody that I was moving to Nashville and starting to work for the Television, Radio, and Film Commission of the Methodist Church. My main job on productions was boom man. I'd get up there and I can control that microphone and swing it back and forth and follow around the actors, always keeping ahead of them. We didn't use radio mics back in those days. With all those lights on there, it got pretty hot. I measured one time it was 110 degrees. But we also used the studio for recording music for film or film strips. We'd get out on location, went up to Wisconsin for 2 weeks, and came back and got back, continued rewiring the control room as we got new equipment. And I do some mixing with the film or film strip soundtracks. Third weekend in October, I met with a group of young people at the West End United Methodist Church to go on a weekend retreat at Montgomery Bell State Park. I met a very beautiful woman there. Her name was Nancy Perkins Jordan, and she was born in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, lived out on Manchester Pike, and her dad was Edward Leland Jordan. Her mother was Evelyn. And by the time she was 11 months old, she had a brother named Ed, and called him Bud. And then they came along pretty quick after this, sister Evelyn and another brother Dick. So Nancy, Buddy, Sissy, and Dickie, as they were called then. And she has in her right hand her lunch pail, very proud of that. When she was 13, they moved to Murfreesboro on Sulphur Springs Road, just sort of the west side of Murfreesboro, where she attended high school and was interested in art and reading, literature. Graduated from high school, then went on to MTSU there in Murfreesboro for 2 years, and then moved to Nashville and worked at the Federal Reserve Bank redeeming war bonds. She's got in a fashion show too on the side there, and spent 3 years at the Bell Telephone Company drafting, after saving up enough money, she went back to college. Attended Scarrett College, working on a degree in religious education. She was quite interested in this area, just like I was quite interested in working for a religious film company. So we both had the same interest that we didn't know at the time. Well, she went back to work at the receptionist, the International Harvester, had to make a little bit more money. Meanwhile, she dated a doctor from Vanderbilt, took him home for a visit. A lot of pictures taken there. Then she decided she maybe wanted to go into teaching. So after getting a little more money together, went back to Peabody, the graduate hall there, and got her degree, teaching certificate anyway, and started the 3rd grade at Jones School. I met her the 2nd year that she was teaching, and I'd get over there and take pictures. She was an excellent teacher. The kids just loved her. Always had something going. Always could understand their problems. Well, I was taken home to meet the parents. There were 5 children at the time. Back row was father, mother, Nancy, Bud. Front row was Hop, Evelyn, and Dick. Evelyn had married 5 or 6 years earlier, and they had 2 daughters, Shannon and Jane. Evelyn was very sick with cancer and died in April of '57. Only after that did we start thinking about getting married. But on June 8th, '57, we did have a very small wedding in her home, because it was just still a little painful, the memories and everything. But Shannon and Jane were the bridesmaids and were so cute. We did the wedding right in the living room. That's Shannon there. She is a doll. I love those 2 girls. So, we did the old cake cutting and the typical, feeding each other. Of course, I love cake anyway. Dick had married Patty and had 2 little girls by that time. And my best man was Tony Pilversack, way over there on the right and just behind Shannon. And we took off for Florida for our honeymoon and went down to Panama City and the beach so we could enjoy a little sun. Came back around through Chattanooga and Lookout Mountain, and of course always taking pictures. We came back to Nashville in the Vanderbilt area to a converted 2-car garage. It was just the right size for starting out, and our first guests were Shannon and Jane, who were a lovely couple and enjoyed them so much. And we gave them a tour of the town. So this is our living room, and you can see the kitchen in the background there. And Nancy, it wasn't all that big, but we did put out a Christmas card that year, and letting me know that we were quite happy. And of course the same, she went back to teaching in the fall, and I built a little store in the back corner there where they could come and buy different things and exchange money. Meanwhile, I was the advisor for the junior high at Westminster Presbyterian. We'd go out on location, and Nancy'd come along just as she was going on, but she got tired of that and would go fishing. In the 50s, most of the shows were scripted and shot in the studios. We'd build our own sets. We'd go to New York and cast our actors and bring them down. Well, in June of '58, we bought our first house on Mayflower Place, a 3-bedroom home. Nancy had a nice place for sewing setup and everything, and a much bigger kitchen to work in. Nancy's couch is about the only good piece of furniture we brought in. She got the curtains up, and they made everything look very nice, and I just sat and watched. Well, I did do a little extra work. I had a workroom too, but that all changed on September 17th, 1959. Now this is where Volume 2 starts, so you can go to that to see what goes on from there. I was promoted to Assistant Production Manager on February 14th, 1960. I took care of budgets and things like that, and one of my first jobs was to go to New York City World's Fair and find out why our projectors weren't running as they should. In November 16th, we took off for Hong Kong for a production there. I was an associate producer and had a few problems to take care of, but we did it. Got back, and then I started working some feature films as sound engineer to pick up a little extra cash. It was sort of exciting. The director didn't like the explosions, so we had to put it out and do it again. And we still had studio productions going on, and I helped out a fellow that had a contract to shoot with Sebastian Cabot, and so I did that for him out in Los Angeles. This is a production probably in Tupelo, Mississippi. I always worked as sound engineer. I had a IA card to work with a union crew on something like that. We were going down the runway in the back of a pickup in front of this thing, and it had bad brakes. Little interesting things. This is General Conference. We covered a lot of activities on that type of thing. And we got out in this is in Los Angeles, location film, and we were up in Cleveland, Ohio, doing another documentary up there. I tried to do a film on the importance of radio and how it affected people, but it was awful hard to visualize what people were thinking when they're listening to the radio, so we dropped the whole project. I was very active in the Society of Motion Picture and Television Engineers. I was chairman, sometimes manager, secretary, treasurer. Served as chairman 3 different years. What I was most proud of was Coming of the Stranger. I was director of photography on that project, which means I was in charge of the lighting, where the lights were placed. The challenge was the candles on the walls and on the desk where the source was, and I had to duplicate that and then keep the color temperature right to get the feel that it was lit by candlelight. I did some freelance work for Noble Dury Advertising, and they convinced me to come on full-time as their broadcast production manager. I'd already worked as freelance on Winfield Dunn's campaign, but sure enough, I got to Noble Dury, and he was our client, and we got him elected the first Republican governor in 50 years. We did some other shows. We used the Jordanaires. I'm not even sure who the client is on this one. We had the Kentucky Fried Chicken account, Pizza Hut, Martha White Flowers, a couple of financial institutions, First American National Bank, I think that's this one. But we lost the Pizza Hut account, which is a big one, and I was out. I got a job at Nashville Tech. The school was only 1 year old, and I was AV technician in the library. President Wells suggested I teach a class in photography, so I got real busy looking for textbooks and resource material, designed the course, and offered it in September. We had 60 people show up. I had to go to 3 nights at 20 a night, but then people kept asking every quarter for more classes, and we kept designing more and more. I had to hire part-time teachers. All of these courses were at night, while I was still AV technician in the daytime. But we finally started adding some day classes because of demand, and I'd take my night class out Sunday afternoon so they get some experience in daytime. We had some good amount of darkroom work. I got all the equipment I needed for the darkroom because we brought in a lot of students, and a lot of students means money. The darkroom was the interesting part, but at the same time I was also doing production for the school as my AV job, and from there I did a big multimedia show for the airport authority. We moved into the Clement building. Bernadette, John, and I helped design the thing, the darkrooms and everything. Then in '78 I started the Audiovisual Technology program. It was a 1-year certificate program. A lot of photography, equipment, TV production, audio recording. I planned the whole thing, and we produced our own promotion. Let's take a look at it.
Welcome to Nashville Tech. Are you looking for an interesting career? How about audiovisual technology? I know you're thinking, well, what kind of job does that lead to? Well, let's see what some of the graduates are doing.
TSU hired some of our graduates. Some of them went on to work in electronics. The photography was the most enjoyable part. I think the students enjoyed the exterior and interior portrait work, the large multimedia productions. One student went up to Channel 4 as audio engineer. Some of them worked in small production units in the industry, and TV cameraman, audio for hotels, salespeople in the Radio Shack, I believe this one was. One of the girls got a job as AV technician at the Universal Studios in Orlando. In May of '90, we took a 3-week trip through England. We rented a car, drove on the left side of the road, and quite an experience. And we traveled from one end of England to the other, 3,000 miles in 3 weeks, and really surprised the Hertz rental people. We saw the where Mother's Cruttendens were buried. Most of our overnight accommodations were bed and breakfast. We found them when we needed them. It saw a lot of castles, ruined castles. That was quite interesting. We went up into Scotland and saw Rowellan Castle, which is the place where most emirs came from. Nancy had studied up ahead of time and knew exactly where we wanted to go and what we wanted to see. We ended up at Windsor Castle, then to the airport, and on our way home. Meanwhile, we had shut down the audiovisual technology program, and I was put in charge of setting up the interactive TV classroom. This included our studio and satellite studios in Cookville. Well, we had a dedication of the Korean War Memorial, so I dressed up and paraded up Union Avenue to the War Memorial. I think I was the only one that wasn't out of breath. Some of my hobbies included building houses for my children. This is really a tree house, literally. It's not there now, though. But my other big hobby was radio-controlled model airplanes. And I like to build them from scratch, taking the drawings and building the wings and the body and installing the engine and all the radio control. This will demonstrate why I take a good photograph of each plane before I fly it. So let's take a look. This was a little hard to fly because the low wings are a little bit harder. So this is what I have to remember it by. I had 8 planes. I have 2 of them left now that I still can fly. They need a little repair, but I can get that done. Well, when I got ready to retire, they gave me $60,000 for some new editing equipment. I got it installed and then passed it on to my successor, because on January 1st, 1998, I was Professor Emeritus. I spent a lot of my spare time working at the church, fixing things. I was chairman of the trustees for 4 years. We had a great staff. There's a lot of fun to work with them. I was then elected as treasurer, and all I did was sign checks that Pat made. Okay, our big event is the fish fry, and of course all the preparation that goes into it and trying to pull the thing off. The auction was one of the main things, and Nancy got quite involved in that one, and we're going to take a look at that and see what happens. The person talking is a friend of mine, Justice Hyde.
That was made by 6 of the finest quilters in Middle Tennessee, all members of this church, and they've been working on this for 2 years. All right. Who'll send me in on this one? Oh. 500. 500, thank you. 500, now 6. 500 bids, 500 bids, 600 bids, 700 bids, 600 bids, 700 bids, 700, 800 bids, 800 bids, 900 bids.
The women that worked on this were all friends of Nancy's, and she wanted that pretty badly, so keep watching.
27, sir. 28, 28, ma'am. 27 a bit, 8 about 30, 3,000. 3,000, thank you. 31, sir. 3,100 buy, 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 $3,100, sir. Don't let it lose for $100. 3,100 buy, 3,100 buy, 3,100 buy, 3,100 buy, 3,000. It's a bargain. We're all in all under 3,000. I've sold it your way, ma'am. Thank you very much.
We have now had 30 years of fish fries, the third Friday of July, and have never been rained on. Well, it just kept getting bigger and bigger. We built a shelter, permanent shelter, for the cooking area. We built a new building, so all this area had to be expanded, and so I built a bridge over the creek and started clearing all that place to the left there, and this is what it is now, more picnic area. A lot of chainsaw work, a lot of clearing. I had a good time. Also made a campfire area. Well, Bible study was another important part of my activities, and now I'm videotaping the church services on Sunday morning.
Well, that's a wrap. 75 years of my life down to 50 minutes. Sort of wore me out even thinking about all I did. But I met a lot of great people, and obviously you're one of them because you're looking at this right now. I guess that's it, and we'll keep in touch, and we'll do a fade out.